We are
Are we
live.
live?
Yep.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fellowship of Fans Sunday stream. We have a lot of cool new stuff to discuss. So we are looking forward to this one. And here with me, we have V. Hello, V.
Hello everyone, how are you doing?
And we have D. Hello, D.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hello. So thank you for being here with us. Behind the scenes, we have Harry. He's being the main man behind the curtain, and also watching the very stressful England game. So good luck to him with that. um, yeah. So this last week was wild. There was a lot of stuff that dropped. That the Empire magazine dropped. So we will just quickly start off with with the covers. So the first things that were released were these two covers, the one with Galadriel and one with Annatar or Sauron. So, what do you think of this? How do they look to you? And also, can you explain to me, like, does this mean there's actually four of them, or what's happening? Do you know?
Four of them. That would be wild, to be honest. Maybe there are two of Sauron, like the Halberd version and the Annatar version, but that's as far as it will go. Um, I like how they parallel the colors. Like you have the characters in similar colors in the first version, and then in their battle version or like the season 2 setup, they have again similar colors. Also, like so first we have like the green version, let's say, and then we have the silver, which is quite interesting as well. It's sort of as if it's transitioning with the seasons. Like last season, I think we were in autumn. Now we are going more winter, if I'm correct. So their costumes are going according to that as well, as far as colors go. And probably I would say that since we have Galadriel in her in the first, like the presenting and the more regal costume, and then we have it in the battle outfit, something similar can be said for Sauron. Like we have him in more Halbrand clothes at first, and then when he transitions to Annatar, which is his mode for deceiving the elves completely and putting his scheme on point, and sort of again a battle outfit. So I really like how they paralleled these two. And I've seen also the someone has had posted a video of the cover, like the physical copy that is 3D, and you basically twist it and you see the second image, and it's magnificent as well. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for a very nice breakdown of the covers. Um, I assume there's only four versions of this, but I don't know. If someone in the comments can maybe tell us, like, do we expect four different ones actually, or not? It says with two, three. It's maybe it's like it has. Okay, maybe it's 3D. It's actual 3D color.
No,
Okay.
no, it's 3D. That's
Yeah.
what they said. So they are. It's basically one copy that has both images depending on how you look at it. That's why I said
Yeah.
that
Okay.
there is a video
That's cool.
somewhere of that, which is very cool.
So I was distracted because England apparently scored, so I missed on that bit. England turned it around. Anyway, someone said Hechimovic in the comments says Laurelin and Telperion colors in Galadriel covers, which is a pretty good observation. Actually, I think that's probably intentional. So well spotted that it is like that. So yeah, maybe let's. I guess let's move to the next bit. All right. Um, so, the how do you like this transition of Annatar? How does this photo look like to you? I think this Annatar seems like maybe a bit better than what we saw, or the first image we saw.
Yeah, I definitely think it's kind of coming together more with these photos. Like during the trailer, he looked good, but it's a little shocking to see that different variant of him. But between this photo and the other photo of him potentially in Celebrimbor's uh, office or whatever near the fire, um, that one looks particularly good as well. It's interesting how I just noticed this now, how they have the falling leaves around him on the Hallbrand version. I wonder if there's some symbolism there of like corruption starting from season
Yeah,
one.
and the other photo has kind of like winter behind it. Actually,
Yeah, that's interesting.
that's what.
I think like season one was autumn. Season two is going to be set on winter, and we need the tower completed by spring. So maybe we will catch a bit of spring as well before the
Yeah, interesting
fall.
play there. Uh, I mean, also, I guess like the Galadriels are maybe more connected with like spring and summer, I suppose, and then we have this like life, and then towards like the death seasons where nature is kind of decaying. I don't know if I guess that's kind of what they're going for. All right, then we can move on to the next bit. Everybody in the comments, you can tell us, please, what do you think of these covers? Like, what do you think? Do you have any theories behind like the backgrounds of each of them, or yeah, just tell us how do you like them and what do you think of like any theories? Is there any clue maybe is hidden on these photos? And here we are. We have the first view, uh, the hint at the first live action view of the barrow-wights, confirmed to be barrow-wights. Yeah, I think these look pretty cool. Though the one thing that everybody pointed out is that these look very kind of like Eastern like. Like they don't look the way we would maybe associate with how the barrow-wights from the Lord of the Rings would look like. So this might be a hint because actually maybe just let's just have like a quick overview of so a lot of people have been having issues with the fact that we are seeing barrow-wights here. So I'm just going to do a little lore dump. Um, so the barrow-wights that we see in Fellowship of the Ring, or the barrow-wights specifically, um, they do come obviously from the Barrow Downs. That's where that whole little story is happening, and they are the theory is that this is the last prince of Cardolan, which was one of the successor kingdoms of Arnor, which was the northern kingdom of the Dunedain. However, it is often missed because it's not really it's mentioned in one of the other. I'm not sure in one of the other places. I don't think it's specifically said in maybe the Lord of the Rings or in the Pentateuch, maybe in some other place it is said, but it is definitely a fact that before those barrows were built there by the people of Arnor, there were already barrows created there by the men who were during the first age going from east to west to Beleriand. So I'm not sure what's like the most specific theory. Was it were those the Edain, one of the three chief houses of men, or maybe one of the Easterlings? But they definitely existed. Also, we do have there's the fact that Sauron is called the necromancer in the Hobbit, which means thanks Sauron for Sauron in the comments explaining what they are. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, so it could be that Sauron will also flex his necromancing powers. I guess it is some kind of a corruption. It actually does fit with what we saw in season one. This tempering with that other world. the power over flesh and spirit, that whole story that we had in the first season, that is actually connected with the rings. So we might see Sauron actually doing something with necromancy, which would explain having whites appear on the screen. And maybe if okay, actually, so I have two theories, but I think I've been going on about the lore for enough. So maybe let's hear first your thoughts. V, how do you like them, and do you have any maybe further thoughts on them?
So I was always also going to go with the lore as well, but because when this dropped, there was a massive conversation about why they're looking so Middle Eastern and stuff like that on Twitter, and actually there was a thread about the
Mm.
lore and how it is by Tim Bolton. I think you saw it as well because I think I saw it from you, Strider. Um, and it's indeed in the first states we mainly see them in the east. So then the theory I had in mind that I also saw someone mentioning in the comments is that the company of Galadriel are actually somewhere in the east, and maybe they will encounter Tom Bombadil in Rune, because we know Tom Bombadil will meet the stranger in Rune, or somewhere close to Rune. And I was thinking, because we know that Tom Bombadil successfully encountered the barrow-wights in the Third Age when he rescued the hobbits from them. Um, so what if now he goes and helps Galadriel and her company as well? Although we are talking about elves that are probably pretty okay with battling barrow-wights, I mean, they have encountered wars, and we've seen Galadriel proving herself in battle in season 1. But it's quite interesting that to see like a version of barrow-wights that not many people even knew that existed. I had forgotten them myself, to be honest. So I really want to see what they will do with them. I like the design very much. I wonder if we ever going to see a third dates barrow-wights, if they will be different since they will be more to the west of origin, and that sort of thing. But from the description, I think on the third dates and from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, we had that they have decorated with ornaments on the skulls and stuff like that. Uh, the reference photos that a lot of people brought up from Middle Eastern cultures indeed show them that they're very close. So I'm quite interested how they will do that, and also if we see like Easterlings and stuff, if they will resemble them at all. If they do, it means that they are connected somehow in terms of origin story and stuff. So I really want to see what they will do with them. The art that we have here is fantastic. Also, the look that we got of Galadriel, actually, like piercing one, was amazing as well. So I can't wait to see them in action. Actually,
All right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential uh, options there. D, what do you think? Do you think so? Do you maybe agree with anything, or do you have any other ideas compared to what we said? And I would add, do you think that would your guess be that this is also happening somewhere towards the east, or it is actually in the region where we usually associate with barrow-wights?
Yeah, while you guys were talking, I was trying to retrace the steps of Galadriel. I was like, where did we end with her in season 1? And I believe, was it in uh Celebrimbor's area?
Aragian,
Yeah, in
yes.
Region.
Regan, yeah, yeah. So I'm like looking at the map right now. Rune is very far from there. So, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That I guess that question hasn't been answered. Like, where are these characters, and why is Galadriel traveling and kind of getting stuck with them? So, yeah, that part I don't know. I was also reading up on barrow rights too, and I believe like they were uh, loosely created by the Witch King. I guess if we were to be like loose with language. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm wondering if this means is the Witch King already existing somewhere, and then there's going to be some reveal, or are we going to see the corruption of like a normal character into the Witch King? Because I know there's like timeline compressions and stuff. So is this a signal that the Witch King's already out there? That could be very, very interesting, I guess.
Well, I think the idea, or kind of like the logical connection, though, even though it's all like circumstantial and like on the periphery of the story, could be that the Witch King kind of learns all of this from Sauron. Um, so I think that if the Witch King becomes the Witch King, or becomes the one of the Nazgul when he gets the ring, whoever he ends up being in the show. So I don't think that's quite like. I think it's more. It's either something else or it's maybe Sauron.
Hmm.
So I think we might see. I guess like one of the hints in the show was that one of the hints in these texts was that we will learn more on how Sauron manipulated events.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll just see that he was actually doing way more things than we expected. Um, but yeah, okay. We have a question here. Where do we think this episode takes part in the series? Yeah, I guess that is a
Hmm.
good question. I guess the big question is, what is the nature of the quest that Galadriel and her company are going on? Because then they encounter these raids, these wights. So I don't know. Do you, if you two had to make a bet, like, would you say maybe it's the middle or the later part of the season?
I'm definitely thinking middle or later because the wardrobe change. Because she ended the season with the green dress, and that we saw the green dress in the trailer. So should be at least semi
Mhm.
later on.
I would say the middle because later we know it's the battle, the 2 episode battle, like in 7 and 8. So I don't think it would make sense to be that. Probably like if I had to bet, third or fourth episode, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it could be like, I would maybe say like, yeah, like fourth or fifth, perhaps. It's hard to say because we don't really know what's the actual plot, but we do know that they will, yeah, as we can see in the photo, that they will face them, and I guess it will take a while to get to wherever the quest is leading them to. And it's also interesting that perhaps there will be like less. If I had to make a bet, I would say that this is probably happening still somewhere in Eriador, and perhaps the reason why they look Eastern, as the internet has described them so far, is that perhaps they might go with this theory that they were made by those men who were not the Edain, but those other tribes in the Silmarillion who were called the Easterlings, and perhaps they already had this kind of cultural aesthetics going on at the time, and then maybe those are their barrows, and then Sauron decides to use them for whatever purpose. But I think if it is happening in Eriador and this is all there, for those who are not sure, Eriador is that area from like the Misty Mountains, like that huge mountain range that goes through the middle of the map towards the sea. There's also mountains there, so it's like this huge area there. Um, Basically like Shire and um, Bree. Bree is basically in the middle of Eriador. So it seems like there will be less jumping around the map for the main characters because Galadriel had like a whole journey across Middle Earth and surrounding areas in the first season. Um, but okay, maybe we can move on to the next one. Unless, do you two have any maybe other comments regarding the barrow-wights, or if you think of something, maybe we can just come back to it later. Okay,
I think
so
we're
then
good.
let's just proceed to the next, to maybe one of the articles, I guess, or do we have some other photos? Ah,
The butterfly.
the man, or should I say the elf, or the Maya himself. All right, well, here we go. The first reveal of what Celebrimbor saw in the trailer. So, folks, you can tell us maybe in the chat, how do you like this Annatar styling here, and like, does he look imposing enough? And do you think, so people in the chat, do you think that is this his entrance where he's like, "Hey, Celebrimbor, I'm back," or is this the time where he is like here maybe to like try to take the rings or something? Like, do you think this is like the first start of Annatar and Celebrimbor um, duo in Eregion, or the end of the that arc? And yeah, I mean, let's go maybe like the same question for D. Do you think this is like the beginning of the arc? Is this maybe Sauron's Annatar's magnificent entrance, or is it maybe something else going on here?
I
And he's
personally
actually behind
feel,
the furnace. I just realized.
yep. Yeah, I think this is more towards the beginning, because he's kind of in like, I guess you could say, standard elf attire. Where later in the trailer you see him in kind of like battle wear, which probably related to the later episodes with the Battle of Eregion. So my guess is this is towards the beginning, and honestly, this is like when I read the books, this is how I pictured Annatar personally. Like I kind of saw him looking more like
Hmm.
this and less like Halbrand, obviously. But yeah, this is at least in my book. I like it.
All right, we.
Um, I really don't know because we have some hints from the trailer that when the Battle of Reagan he's in different clothing, so it can't be that. Um, at the same time, it doesn't really make sense to me to be when they're making the rings because he doesn't wear anything for Smith's work. He's just there with his casual, normal elf clothes. While we saw Celebrimbor when he was doing the hard work, he was wearing a specific outfit to protect himself. Like Galadriel was there, obviously, with her normal clothes, but the only thing she did was to drop knife in the
Yeah.
fire. So she didn't do any Smith's work. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a set photo for the magazine and not in the actual like sequence of the series, and they just put him in the pretty clothes in front of them. However you call it, I forgot. This workshop, like
In
obviously
furnace.
the fire is there. Yeah, so that's my thought on that.
I think if I had to make a bet, I mean, I kind of agree with both of you. I think it might be more like this is the moment. Like I have feeling Celebrimbor as well looks surprised, and this is again. I just realized when we actually sat here and started analyzing it. This is the furnace, and it might be that it's like in the middle of the night, and you know, Celebrimbor basically gets woken up by some kind of noise here, and it turns out that he sees Anatar like this. So I think this might be like Anatar's great entrance, where he's actually trying to, convince, hey, dude, the last time I was here, I was just checking you out. I was just making sure that you are the great smith I thought you were. And now I'm here to reveal to you that I'm here as an emissary of the Valar, uh, that, and I want to help you fix Middle Earth. Of course, I'm not sure how much they can say, like, or I think they can definitely mention Valar, but it might be that they would like to keep it simple, so he might just say that it's like that he's here that because he just wants to help Middle Earth. But I would say like this. I'm if I had to make a bet, I would say this is like his big entrance. This might be the reveal that Celebrimbor realizes he is Sauron. I mean, it could be, but he seems more. I don't think I don't think Annatar here seems too aggressive. Like I think I think the reveal might be more dramatic, uh, maybe more sinister, maybe not as openly dramatic as the as his reveal in the first season, but just more sinister, perhaps in some way. But okay, so overall, we are in agreement that this looks pretty cool. All right, then we can move maybe to our next bit of news that we have to talk about. Yeah, so Galadriel. Let's just do the same thing. So, what do you think? The
To
opening
stand to speak.
or sorry?
I said to stand to speak, like you just said Galadriel, and then stop speaking. To stand to speak.
Yeah, I mean, she does look great. And honestly, like this is a great photo. Like it looks, she does look great. Like the dress, I love the color. It looks like really perfectly elvish. So, do we
Yeah.
think that this is maybe like the first, like maybe perhaps the first episode even?
Yeah, could be.
I could see that for sure.
Like
I think
living in
it fits.
Radiant, going to Linden.
Yeah, I think it fits with that scene. I think we saw a scene of her, and I think we all assumed that it was Elrond riding somewhere. So it might be that they are perhaps going back to Linden.
Yeah.
Um, all right.
I
Maybe we can
think
move on
like
to the next
one of the
one. Yeah.
details that people mentioned, and I think it's indeed beautiful, is how they have braided the horse as well. Like this is very
Mhm.
elven behavior. And yeah, it looks
Yeah.
amazing. I have to say it's even better than her scene riding in Numenor.
Yeah, I agree. It's a better photo. Okay, then let's move on to the next part. And also, so interesting part here so far, thoughts on new looks at of Annatar. It's most people are excited. All right. So we have the Varking's favorite moment of the last week. Uh, so we have this really cool photo of King Durin the Third. So let's see. How
Oh,
excited? Yeah.
this was the article where they said that Celebrimbor was kind of a minor character in season 1, and he's gonna be arguably the principal protagonist, and I really like that line because we all know where Celebrimbor's heading, so it'd be really cool to, uh,
Mhm.
kind of really, feel the impact of that ending with, his story arc and kind of growing with him through all this corruption, and hopefully we feel bad for him at the end of it.
Yeah, well said. I think. I mean, this is the key moment. There is a moment for him to shine. This is definitely this season. So yeah, like it's in the column number 2, and towards the bottom is this quote. Yeah. Um. Yeah. I think everybody's looking forward to seeing more of Celebrimbor. That is really good news. Um. So, do you have any other maybe moments that you like from this article?
I mean, from the picture we saw King Durin's ring, so that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We know he's receiving a Rings of Power this season, which makes me wonder if we will see the other Dwarf Lords receive one as well, and if we will see the Nine be given out. Although, like when we saw the trailer, there is a moment that Celebrimbor um, tries to like burn the 9 rings because we stopped it
Mm-hmm.
and counted, and um, So maybe they will keep them, like Sauron will save the Nine Rings and will keep them to give them out in season 3, or he will give them out in the end of season 2. But the one thing for sure is that the Dwarf Lords are getting their rings this season. So, are we going to see just during the third? Are we going to see any other dwarf, like from the Iron Mountains, or like the Blue Mountains? I think already have one. Um, Stuff like that. So, really wondering. And also, probably this ring is the one that also Thorin was meant to have, but was lost by his father
That is true.
Thrain.
That is the ring of that family indeed. This
Yeah.
is Thorin's great, 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 great many greats grandfather. To be fair, they're dwarfs, maybe, so it's not actually that many. Great, 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 great.
I mean, you
Um,
have 3,000 years before Thorin, so
I mean,
it's a
yeah, to
lot
be
of
fair, it
grades.
is around 10 of them, so I was more or less on point,
Yeah.
probably. Actually, there is a very interesting quote towards the end. If we can maybe move just a little bit towards the last, I think it's in the last column. There is an interesting line there. So yes, so I'm just going to read this whole bit. So a recurring motif in mythology centers around the king's failing health, leading to a sickness in the land that endangers the entire kingdom. So first of all, here we have the implication that there is even more of a connection, of a spiritual connection between the king of the dwarves and their dwarven realm. So between King Durin and Khazad-dûm. D, how do you feel about like this, like them leaning more into the spiritual connection? Like, it is kind of thematic, but do you think it could work on screen?
Yeah, I could see that. Like between that and oh man, I'm a little foggy today. I don't know if it was behind it might have been the behind the scenes videos that were released recently of
Uh-huh.
showing more singing with
Mm,
Disa and the other dwarves. I could see there being that theme. I guess we technically don't know what's causing the collapse of the mine that we briefly see in the trailer too. So I could see that like spiritual stuff like causing some
mhm.
strife in there potentially as well. So yeah, I'd be really curious to see what's kind of causing the drama down there because we know the drama above them with the Region, what's going to be happening, but what's going on in Khazad-dûm this season?
Uh, Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if if there is a connection between, like, is Sauron somehow also, making things happen in Casa Doom as well, or is this, a mere circumstance, that there's this struggle amongst the dwarfs as well. Um, but another thing that's just beneath in the paragraph after that is that, so just as the king has become deaf to the pains of his own son, the dwarves have lost their ability to hear the mountain. This precarious position makes them ripe targets for Sauron's offer of dwarven rings, um, as a panacea, or I'm not sure because it's a bit blurry, but it all comes at a price: King Durin's sanity. Uh, and then it says it goes on like there's more darkness incoming. But for me, why this quote is very interesting is, to my overwhelming sadness, so far, we haven't seen or heard any mentions of the other of the remaining six tribes of dwarves. I think in season one we had kind of a leak that there was going to be a dwarven princess, and when we saw Disa and, like in those first bits of promo for season one, I was really excited, and really hopeful that we would see this show because this is the perfect chance. We know that all seven lords of the dwarves of these seven tribes get one ring, and I was really hopeful that actually Disa would have turned out to be a princess of one of these tribes. And then because we also had some other leaks as well talking about like some kind of like political tensions among the dwarves, so we all kind of pieced it together into like maybe there's political tensions between two or more tribes of dwarves. However, this article here and this quote that I just read kind of implies that the seven rings might be distributed only in these within Casa Doom. So there's no mention of these other seven tribes, and I'm kind of worried and I mean, worried and slightly annoyed ahead of time that we might not get the chance to actually explore these other six tribes of dwarves. So how do you feel about this, V? What do you think about all that? How do you like? Do you think it's maybe a good move to try to focus this just on Khazad-dûm, or would you have preferred if they maybe expanded the story?
So I understand why they would like only have it in Khazad-dûm because it's very difficult to show all these different tribes. On the other hand, we don't need to focus on the other tribes. We only need to focus on Drinthad and the dwarves of Khazad-dûm because they are the ones relevant to the story. And I really don't see how Seven Rings of Power in Khazad-dûm would work because they do different things. The Rings of the Dwarves are mainly for power and wealth. So when you have one dwarf lord providing all that wealth with his ring, it's pretty straightforward that he stays king. If you have others that can do the same, then why he's staying king and taking care of people? I mean, it's the royal right, the royal line, and stuff like that. But we are in the second age where things are a bit more realistic than they were in the third. With, in my opinion, the Lord of the Rings books are more idealistic, and then as you go further back, you have a more realistic portrayal of Middle Earth and how it would actually work. So it doesn't make sense to have seven rings in Khazad-dûm because you need seven dwarf kings, seven dwarf lords. So I think if they do that, Varking will be mad. First of all,
Yeah, like
and
totally
then,
avoid the dwarves.
yeah, and then everyone else will be mad, which I think is worse to have Varking mad. Um, so that's sort of what I'm thinking regarding the rings.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I have to say I really agree with Gregory's comment that we just had on the screen. I like there's so much opportunity for there's so many gray areas of lore that haven't been fully expanded on. So I saw another question by Otaku Senpai, um, that so do the dwarf lords of the Blue Mountains also dwell in Kazunami Second Age? So as far as I know, as far as I remember, they mostly they are kind of spread out to Misty Mountains or like to Khazad-dûm as well. But there also there's definitely remnants of them in the Blue Mountains. That's where Thorin and all the other dwarves were dwelling before the Hobbit, while they were in exile. Most of them were in the Blue Mountains. So um, that's like those are the three main tribes of dwarves that we see in the Silmarillion, the Hobbit, and the Lord of the Rings. We know that there's four others who dwell in like the east and southeastern areas. So some of them could have been in Rune, for example. Some of them could have been maybe further away, and so on. And it does feel like really a missed opportunity to not include them if this is what is going to happen. But Taco Senpai has also seemingly did some research, and yeah, we got the confirmation that those three, or at least his theory that those three tribes may also be in Khazad-dûm. They haven't been mentioned though so far. But we also have a super chat, Ring Spectre. Thank you very, very, very much. So if Disa is a spy of Sauron, could she not be faking that she cannot hear the mountain anymore, leaving room for Sauron coming in with an offer? Um, all right, that is an interesting question. D, how do you see this possibility?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't even think of that. That could definitely happen. I was kind of stuck in earlier in the conversation. I wonder if it's possible if Disa could be from a different dwarf tribe. You know how like a lot of kingdoms they like have like they marry their daughters off to kind of create
Mm,
allies and all that. I'm wondering if the same thing could be happening with her. Like maybe she is from a different area and maybe her relatives come into play and that's how we get a ring to a different I guess dwarf faction.
mhm,
But
That would be interesting, but we have their origin. uh, in season one, if I remember correctly, which I think I do, they when Elrond visits, Disa tells to Elrond how he and Durin the Fourth met, and she was actually working in the mines, and during
mm,
the Fourth developed a habit of going there a lot, and then he asked her to marry him. But it would be interesting if that was the case. I give you that because it's very medieval royal um,
mm,
core, and it would be definitely something that could happen in Tolkien universe, given how much he knows
mm,
about that.
mm,
As to Disa being a spy of Sauron, if it was a different show, I would very much like it. But it, I think it's very distinguished and very hard for something like this to happen now and here. Um, we also have the fact with the Balrog inside the mountain, which could be a reason that they cannot hear the mountain anymore because the Balrog is awake. Um,
right, right.
and also, I don't think Sauron would go for an informant such as Disa because that means he should have planned her to make Journey fall in love with her and then marry her. And that is hard for the reason that usually it emerges for like allyships and alliances and stuff like that. Uh, that was a marriage for love, and that's not very common to happen supposedly in this universe when it comes to royals, at least not all the time. Although it, and when it happens, we have stories from it, like Arwen and Arwen. Um, so it would be quite the master plan for Sauron to achieve that. Not that he
Mm,
couldn't, but I don't think he would try that. But it's definitely an interesting theory, and wow.
yeah. I think, again, if I had to make a bet, I wouldn't expect it. I think such, not because I don't think it wouldn't work necessarily. Like, it could with proper setup, with proper writing, you can create something like that. I just don't think that there would actually be time for. So okay, we have another super chat. Then I'll continue with my answer. During the fourth was about to marry someone else. Is this a theory or is that something from season one? Because I was going to say that I don't think there is room time wise in the season two to actually have this arc. We have another comment here. Maybe she's a royal of another dwarf kingdoms destroyed when Beleriand sank. Maybe she's just an from those families that saw refuge there. It is possible. The thing, so I was contemplating this like I talked about this quite a few times with some friends, and I mean, with people within fellowship fans most of the time, and I feel like they missed the chance for this already in season one because they say that she was just someone who was just singing somewhere in a mind, and then Durin was saw her at some point and was just starting to court her and so on. So I feel like they already missed. If they wanted to say she's the princess, they would have said it at that time. So there is like a specific moment in season 1 when they kind of talk about how they met, Elrond asked her and so
Yes,
on. We touched
and
on it a bit already, and it's not mentioned there. V?
Ring Spectre says that it is a fact that he was during the fourth was going to marry someone else. I don't remember it, but if it's indeed
All
a
right,
fact, then the
that
theory
is
has
interesting.
much more ground that she was planned, and it's actually interesting. But again, I don't think they have the time for it to let it develop. Like, we get 8 episodes in season 2, and that's one of the bad things. Like, I remember when we transitioning from the 22 episodes a year to now 8 episodes in 2 years. There was a middle ground with 10 episodes each year, which would probably work much better if we wanted such theories to come
Yeah.
into life. Um, but then again, I don't think we have the time. But it's pretty good theory.
I think you are right. I agree with that. Like, I think it is a shame that we don't have more time there. I think Netflix actually had a pretty solid run with some of the shows. They had like 12 or 13 episodes seasons, and that feels like that could have worked um, pretty well, I think. But yeah, sadly, it is what it is so far. Um, sorry, just a second. Let's see in the chat any interesting facts here so far. So yeah, as Mike said, we touched on that maybe she is from these Dwarven kingdoms that sank. So those kingdoms, as a little response to Mike, the survivors of those are still in the Blue Mountains because they were in Blue Mountains. So I guess a lot of them died probably during the Silmarillion, but that is where they still remain, even though they kind of never went above that. Um, they never recovered. Khazad-dûm took the primary role as the chief of the Dwarven kingdoms. But that is it's interesting. We can see. I also see some other people in the chat theorizing how long could it take for the ring bearers to transform into the Nazgul. So I think it is said in the books that it is depending on how strong they were in the beginning. So the men who get the rings, how strong were they in the beginning, and also how good their intentions were. So those were like the two main factors that kind of like made it so they would fall sooner or later to the power on the ring and become completely Sauron servants. So let's see. Sadly, I think because of, and as we said, like because of the time compression, just having 8 episodes per season is just really really sad and really not enough. So yeah, we'll have to see, but I think they will have to rush a lot of these, sadly. But we can move to some of the articles that Empire dropped. So here we
Basically,
have the tweet.
I
Sorry.
sorry. I just wanted to say that these are basically a preview of what the articles we have in the 4th of July that they are dropping. So there are some bits that they released now in anticipation
Indeed.
for the 4th of July. So yeah.
Yeah, so they dropped quite a few things. D, would you maybe like to just read this tweet for us, please?
Sure. And if I scream in the middle of it, it's because I'm in the middle of a lightning storm. So I get like really close lightning strikes here. All right.
Hopefully you'll be all right.
The Rings of Power is about the story of Sauron's ascendancy. If you had to pick one reason to make this show and set it in this era of the mythology, that's it. McKay tells Empire. Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. As the Second Age, there's not a lot during that time going on, and this show is pretty much hitting on all the major points. So Sauron seems to be the major thread throughout them.
Yeah, this is one of the core moments in the history of the Legendarium. So completely agree with that. Um, do you want to maybe read this one as well, and then maybe we can comment on it because there's a bit more to do here.
Mm,
D, do you want to read this one
Oh,
as well?
sure. Yeah, sorry. I
oopsie.
swear it's not.
Ignore
It's
those
not.
Balrogs over there. No, no lightning. All good.
All right, here we go. The opportunity now with season 2 is the audience is on the Khan. We know who he is. We have a pretty good sense of what he wants. The fun is watching other people get ensnared in the web. As the season unfolds, the plan starts. One hammer after another starts to fall until, by the last couple of episodes, you realize the level and extent of how evil he is and how deeply he's strategized this whole thing out. Yeah, that's a powerful quote. Love it.
Yeah, it does imply that we are going to see way more of these manipulations, and like I hope this means that this season two will properly explain a lot of the issues that a lot of people had with the storytelling in season one. Hopefully, we do get to see this Sauron, the master planner of evil, and this is what the full code promises.
Also, one thing I want to add, if you've read like the Silmarillion, the last part that it explains the making of the Rings of Power, basically you know that Annatar is Sauron, so it's exactly what they are doing there. And in the Finnish tales as well, I know like the people, the reader is in the con indeed, and he knows that the elves and everything around him are being manipulated. So it's nice to see them taking this approach as well. And also, the last thing I want, I think, to comment about this quote is it gives me hope that the theory I had in season one that Annatar was there all along to manipulate and do bad in a region was true, because it says like he how deeply he strategized this whole thing out. So I wonder if we see like allies of him in the elves of Arabian that are doing his work basically for the last years, and if we will see like a sort of backstory that goes a bit further back than when we saw season one and Sauron going there as Halbrand. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. I mean, I think that this is a pretty solid theory. Let's see if it comes true. Okay, so we have another super chat from Ring Spectre. Thank you very much again. We appreciate that. So based on the recent news, I'm convinced Annatar phase will not just be a flashback. Do you think we will still have flashbacks on Sauron and Brimby from season one? So I think it's pretty much confirmed that Annatar will not be in the flashbacks. This Annatar shape will be one of the chief characters in this season. So he will be in present day of the show, working actively with Celebrimbor on creating the rings. What is possible? There was a lot of hints and theories about that we might get some um, flashbacks to some things that were maybe even before season one. Perhaps I think one of the theories was that we might even see Adar slaying Sauron the first time, what we learned of that happened in season one or like before season one. Um, so I think so. It's definitely confirmed. Annatar is in season two playing a very active role in present day. It is, I guess, hinted and theorized that we might get flashbacks on Sauron doing some things before season one, even. So I hope that answers the question. And thank you very much again for this super chat. We actually had a pretty good quote. Maybe we can just go back to it from Charlie Vickers saying actually basically just what I said. Yeah. So the opportunity now with season 2 is the audience is on the con, and everything that's
No,
on.
no, we read that. It's the one after that. Wait, above this. Yes, this one. You have Sauron and Celebrimbor. This one.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
This.
This one. Yeah. So you have Sauron and Celebrimbor working together, making rings. Everything Sauron does is to serve other people, to appeal to someone else. In the same way, the whole Harbin thing was for Galadriel, this new look is for Celebrimbor. This is the best way to get him to do what he wants him to do, make a bunch of rings that will dominate everyone else, says Charlie Wiggers. So this kind of implies that um, Sauron or Galadriel bumping into Sauron wasn't on accident or by accident, depending on where you come from, um, but intentional because he was trying to get something from Galadriel. He was trying to, I guess, corrupt her. That might have been the goal there. But he says here that for Celebrimbor, there's a different goal, and for this goal, he needs a different persona, which is to presumably, as it was in the lore, present himself as one of the Maiar, one of the emissaries of the Valar, and to like tell him, "Hey, I want to help, make Middle Earth great again." And that's where Celebrimbor decides to continue working with him. I like the chat. The chat is quite active. That's really nice. So yeah,
Also,
maybe we can. Yeah.
one last thought I had on this. What if the OG Sauron had been like either on a region or had met Celebrimbor before somewhere else? And basically, this new form, Sauron already knows Celebrimbor, but Celebrimbor doesn't know that. So he has that familiarity with that guy that he cannot explain how. So that's why he feels okay and not so quick to trust him and stuff like that.
Could be. Okay, we have another super chat from Ring Spectre. So if there are no Annatar Brimby flashbacks, there will be many open stuff. Evan Lord's only meeting that other than by spring. I tried before. Yeah, it could be. There is a lot. The sad thing is that there is a lot of stuff that they will have had to cut away from the show. We know as a fact that there was a lot of talks behind the scenes between editors and showrunners on which storyline is more important, whether the Numenor storyline or the Eregion storyline. And we know that a lot of things they were like deciding what needs to be cut down more. So it's going to be very interesting to see how well they will be able to create this storyline and how well will they be able to shape this storyline between Annatar and Celebrimbor. But yeah, I think you asked some really good questions here, and yeah, let's see. Okay, and we have here another quote. So regarding the picture from Galadriel, now we have
Perfect.
D. So let's just talk about how cool this guy looks like. Still alive. The thunderstorm. Hopefully,
I survived the thunder battle.
Yeah. The
The
how's it
rock
called?
giants.
The legend of the Chrysaegrim, or the battle of the Chrysaegrim, or whatever it was. The
Did you see
apocryphal tale.
any rock giants playing in the storm?
I wish that would have made it a lot more enjoyable.
Okay. Harry is playing with the Nice.
We're having a little bit of mix up here. All right. So Galadriel has the inspiration to redeem herself. Now that she's seen the whites of the eyes of the person who's bringing it down, she is all revved up. I think it's an unfortunate, maybe verb to use, all revved up, but still, it does say a lot about her mental state. D, could you what are your thoughts? Like, could we like what would if you know? Obviously, you're just trying to like give your prediction here. So compared to her kind of like a mindset in season one, what could this mean for season two? Where is she moving there? Because she was already kind of revved up. So what could be different here?
She shifted into second gear. Yeah, I definitely the revved up language. I don't like it, but in terms of the character arc, I like it. I guess what I could see is maybe we didn't see her much as a commander, so I could see her making some like intense like battle decisions. Maybe she's like leading a lot of people, and we get to see that. Um, that could be really nice to see. But yeah, other than that, I don't know.
All right. Okay, Gregory. Hello there. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
I like the bookshelf. That's the
Just
one of the
popping
few
in to
proper
say
backgrounds for a stream. So I have a question
yes,
for
my
you.
Beauty and the Beast library.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
it's
does look
green.
it does look like it. So I have a question for you. What do you think? If you can see the quote on the screen, so that Galadriel will be all revved up after coming face to face with Sauron. How do you think her character arc will could go? You know, your theory on this in season two compared to season one, because she was already revved up in season one.
Yeah, maybe it's more sensitive, right? Maybe she realizes that being right. Like if we think about this in the context of her long-term character arc, and we assume that the end point that we get to is where she is in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because that's the end of her time in Middle Earth, and that's constant and fixed, and we can't change that. Then I would think that her progression is one towards someone who's um, a little more melancholic, a little wiser, maybe a lot wiser. And so that I would say that maybe we start to see the first bits of that here, that, and that in itself is a journey. Maybe there's pieces here where she feels like giving up for a little bit, and we see a little bit of that. And then we see that, giving up's not the answer or whatever. So I would imagine that, um, what does revved up mean? What does it mean in this case? Like that she's more desperate. Maybe it's that she's a little more. I would just love to see a more slightly more stoic. Like she knows it needs to be done, and she doesn't need to just tell everybody about it all the time, like it felt like she was constantly doing in the first season.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's fair. Like she will have to change. She only has a basically limited amount of time to get to Galadriel, or at least close to Galadriel. We know. So yeah, she might just end up being, like all I hate it, but like revved up in the in just but just like in a different way, I guess.
I had to Google it, to be honest.
Maybe we can move on to the next quote.
Although, like, it's interesting that it used to, like, to redeem herself, because Sauron told her in the last episode how, basically, I don't remember the quote, how will she will face the rest of the elves when she is the reason that Sauron is back. So that's why she feels she needs to redeem herself, and she probably will be so uptight about it and all that.
Mhm. Could be. Um, I don't know. I just hope I hope that Morphet gets more quality writing, because I think my personal opinion is that she did a really good job actually as Galadriel, but that she was let down with the material given to her. So hopefully that maybe gets better in season 2. But Gregory, as you can see on the screen, we have the first look on barrow-wights. So how do you feel about them? How do you like this?
I mean, I
still
mentioned
that we have
something about it. Wasn't sure if you guys covered this already. So I mentioned this in chat a few minutes ago. First, I think the look is pretty cool. Yeah, it's not like what I imagined in my head when I first thought of it, but hey, like who cares? You know, as long as it looks awesome. My big question is how are we having barrow-wights this early in the Second Age when they're not supposed to come until? I mean, they're the war that causes the barrow-wights, as we understand them and know them, occurs in the Third Age, and then they don't exist as entities until some amount of time after that war. So we're like 1,000, 2,000 years early here on the barrow-wights. So someone else said this in the chat. I can't remember who it was, that maybe these are just different barrow-wights. In which case, I don't know how like we get around to explaining that. I'm open to it as an idea, but I would be really disappointed if they just conflated them and acted like if this is how we get Tom Bombadil in the story, that would be disappointing, you know.
That's fair. We did actually kind of touch on that earlier. So basically, it's possible. Yeah, exactly. Tim Bolton had really. So everybody, please go check it out. It's an amazing thread that really explains it. But basically, there's a possibility. There, at least the way I say, there are two possibilities. So one was there were actually barrows there before Arnor, built by the people who were moving in the First Age towards Beleriand. Yeah, so here we go. Built by the forefathers of the Edain before they crossed the Blue Mountains into Beleriand, of which Lindon is all that now remains. And then they were, revered, and then later on also basically used by the Dunedain thousands of years later. And then the another option is then, or rather, it kind of fits well together, that Sauron is known as the Necromancer, so we might just end up seeing him use these existing ones, or maybe he just uses, maybe he creates barrow-wights from some other place. It could be, I guess, like during the Second Age, there might have been even more of the remnants of the First Age, so he could be using some others as well.
Also, I think someone mentioned the mystics somehow getting involved in that.
Was I the only one who missed it?
Sorry? Gregory, what did you say?
Was I the only one who misunderstood the barrow-wights as being a Third Age phenomenon that came from the war between the Witch King and the Men of Arnor? Or
no?
Like, did you guys?
No. That is exactly what happens. It's just that the barrows already existed there, and then the Dunedain created also their own barrows on them. So yeah, as it says here, so they were built by the forefathers of the Edain during the Silmarillion. So when the men were traveling, I mean, it's a very, this is like a very in unfinished tales. So it's like forgiven not to know this because it's not a very in your face piece of information.
I think it's a very niche part of the lore that I think only 2 or 3 people mentioned it when it first came up. Most of the people were complaining why we have barrow-wights in the Second Age. So it's a
because
very
this is it. Like this is the one mention basically.
I also didn't know until I saw Tim Bolton's thread.
Credit to the showrunners or whoever's writing it for digging up lore that most lore heads don't know about. I mean, that's awesome.
I think a lot of stuff we've seen are in the unfinished tales of lore that most people don't know, and that's why most people are complaining. Although I give it that it has a lot of lore-breaking stuff in the Rings of Power, but at the same time they have done a lot of reading like in things that I don't know if they have rights or not, to be honest. But yeah.
I mean, I think that in one of the articles after the first season, right after, in the days just following the last episode, I think there was some mentions of second season being maybe more lore accurate. Like the first season was kind of like trying to set things up, and then second season would be like a course correcting towards, okay, now we did some setting up that we wanted to do. Now we can continue with the.
I think the relationship they have with the Tolkien estate is kind of dynamic. So as the show progresses, they ask for more rights. So we may see more stuff like as the show goes on that are from very buried down parts of the lore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll never know completely. Like, what did they get the rights to from the get go? What was maybe like given to them later, and so on. But this is a interesting, deep dive, I guess. But the interesting thing here is the look of them, because we talked about it. They look kind of Eastern, so it's interesting to think about why this is so. But let's see. I think we can maybe start wrapping up here. Does anyone have any maybe questions or comments that we haven't already mentioned, perhaps?
I have a quick one.
Mhm.
What if their design is more Eastern looking? Because eventually we might get, the Army of the Dead, if we're lucky, in future seasons. And they had to kind of differentiate two like ghost looking armies.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought. I don't know, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of ground to cover as well.
That is actually a good point. Yeah, we might get another ghostly group later on. That is actually a really good point. I wonder, like, I'm interested to hear actually what everybody's thoughts as well on this. That is a good question, because I guess they don't really become ghosts right away. I haven't thought about it before, but like, presumably, if we do get to see these people from the White Mountains, so the mountains of Gondor, that Isildur curses because they break their oath to him that they would fight against Sauron. I guess we could see this curse happen, but I think it's kind of implied that over time, because there's like 3,000 years, more or less, a bit more than 3,000 years passes since the War of the Last Alliance to the War of the Ring. I guess it would make sense that this decay into this ghostly kind of people happens over time. So we probably wouldn't see them actually right away. But that is a really good point. That,
also,
like,
I think
there might be some other, yeah.
These people are between basically Rohan and Gondor, if I'm correctly. So they're not like they're in the east, as we think of it when we talk about Middle Earth. But and also, I don't think we will see them dead yet, because supposedly they are just cursed, and when they eventually die, they become ghosts. So that would be probably much later than the events of the Last Alliance. I'm more inclined to the theory that those barrow-wights are actually somewhere in the east, or at least more east than the places we've seen so far in the show. But I'm not sure what they do in that. And also, there are probably different barrow-wights than the ones in the third dates, so they cannot look the same, in my opinion.
I mentioned this the last time I was on a stream, that like maybe part of the role Tom Bombadil plays here is the settling of the Harfoots in the Shire, and that eventually they need to go over the Misty Mountains, and no one, I think Tolkien himself says, like, no one's quite sure how that happens, right? So maybe that's what they're drawing on here. That's why we get Tom Bombadil on the other side, and he meets Nori in the east and stuff, right? If all that's the case, I take back what I said earlier. Now that I know the barrow-wights could have been or were there at this time, maybe that is how this comes about. Maybe he helps take the Harfoots over to what becomes the Shire, and I still have my little secret hope that that's where that we'll see Entwise there also. But gets there, and the barrow-wights are there, and he basically protects them against the barrow-wights to help settle the Shire. I mean, that's a fairly reasonable theory, I think.
Honestly, that
I
is a
like
pretty
it.
good theory. Like he might help them somehow get there because again, like the hobbits migrated in a rather slow way. So for them, lore wise, if you consider the vastness of the timeline, it does not make sense for Harfoots. And I don't know if we're going to see some other groups of hobbits to end up in Shire. That just not doesn't make sense in regards to the lore and books as well. But within the show, I guess they could just try to kind of like make it like that, perhaps. And then if they do want to go for this, if they do want to go for settling of the Shire, then I think that would fit perfectly with maybe like Tom helping them in some way. My theory with Harfoots was that we might not even get to see Shire in the show because also it is supposed to be like really quite some years after this, but that we might see Harfoot settle near Anduin because that and as far as I remember, I think there's another tribe called the Stoors, and I feel like maybe we will see this tribe of Stoors show up at some point as well. And I think that it's the one group of Stoors settles near Anduin, and that's where
Yeah.
that's who Smeagol is. He is, I think, from one of the Stoors. So my theory, if we see settling of hobbits somewhere, which we presumably will by the end of the show, it might be actually this not Shire. But then again, it could be that they will just try to set it up because it feels like the show is trying to like put a lot of things to jam as many cool things they can in the show. So I think it could actually work as well. And then we just also see maybe Tom setting up in at the edge of Old Forest, perhaps after helping the hobbits.
Yeah, and Otaku's pointing out, I conflated. I was saying Shire, but I just meant going west of the Misty Mountains, and obviously Breeland and all that was settled way before the Shire. And I think the hobbits, their Shire reckoning, right, year number whatever, comes from the year when the Shire was sort of incorporated or whatever. But there were, there would obviously be messing with the timeline a little bit, but it does seem to dovetail well with. So maybe not the Shire, but like again, Breeland or just going west of the mountains, and that would perhaps dovetail well with the whole Tom element. Or maybe it ends with them settling in, at Anduin, and we see that like Tom has his eye out on them, and we sort of get a hint that he'll help them on their journey as we go along later anyway.
My only problem with that is that it's too far away. Like, Tom is currently on Rune, probably with the Stranger and Nori, and the Harfoots are nearby. So getting west of the Misty Mountains in one season, while we have other things to see as well, maybe it's more progressive, and we will see it in later seasons.
Yeah.
That, but it's a
knows,
cool idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, it doesn't detract either
I mean,
way
this could even
from
be
the
the
actual main
end
stuff.
of season 5.
All right. So then I think we went through most of the things we wanted to talk about tonight. So I would just ask maybe everybody for some final closing thoughts. So maybe we can start with D, and we just go like from top to bottom. D, any other final thoughts? Any maybe impressions or like how these news make you feel maybe or something like that? Like anything that you can tell us just to like as closing thoughts.
Yeah. Nothing alarming. Like, I really do feel like the hype has been maintained for me since the trailers dropped. Like, there hasn't been anything that kind of scared me. Like, all this stuff seems pretty positive to me. One thing we didn't mention that I noticed was Galadriel has a new sword. So take a quick look at that Empire magazine cover if you want to check that out. It definitely is. It's a newer design. And then yeah, that's pretty much final thoughts for right now.
Okay. I actually started rewatching Rings of Power season 1 yesterday, and it looks very similar to Arondir's sword. So I don't know if maybe that's just maybe it might be just like a standard, Linden sword, I guess. But still, definitely something to look forward to because we haven't seen the whole sword. So who knows? Maybe it is some special kind of sword. V, what can you tell us? Do you have any final thoughts?
So I'm super excited about the barrow-wights, to be honest. Since we saw the trailer, I think it was the number one theory that we will see the barrow-wights there, and Viking saying Tom Bombadil in the in the deep. But I'm really excited that we got to see their design because it's pretty awesome seeing it more complete. We had some behind-the-scenes footage of what we get was barrow-wight. That didn't really look really awesome because it was behind the scenes. But that's the thing I'm more excited about to have to see, like how it will turn out and how they will explain the backstory and how the elves are going to defeat them. Because don't forget, it's like Galadriel, Edward, and 2 or 3 more elves in their company that are traveling, which is a huge question where they're traveling. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. I mean, there was a lot. There is a lot of potential there. I just hope all of these things get their proper amount of screen time, and that we actually get to like kind of feel these characters a bit more than usual than in the first season. But so we have another question here. Or like super chat from Ring Spectre. So talking about the connection between Galadriel and Sauron. Finrod's dagger is also mentioned. So yeah, I mean, Finrod's dagger ended up being used, I think, right? It was melted away for the rings. So yeah, I guess in a way there might be some connection there because Sauron will try to corrupt the rings. He will try to assume power over them. And in these rings, there's the material of the dagger that belonged to Finrod, Galadriel's brother. So in a way, there is some connection, I guess, there between because Sauron did kill him as well. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Gregory, what do you think of all of this? Like, do you have any final thoughts? Like all these photos, quotes,
First off,
new hints, and everything.
I'm relieved about the barrow-wights, and glad to know a little more of lore that I wasn't aware of before. That's always fun. And I think ultimately, I'm just really hoping that it all comes together. I feel like I'm still a little. I don't know if I'm like I'm in a wait and see place with the season. Really excited. I'm sure there are going to be some parts that are really cool, and I'm just hoping that they don't go like too off the wall with some of the other stuff. But it looks cool. I'm sure the music's going to be great. So I am getting a little more excited as we get we're less than 2 months away now. So I'm good for that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Also, thank you to everybody in the chat. Who else is revved up for the season? So yeah, I think we are going to wrap up now. Thank you very, very much to everybody. Thank you to Harry behind the scenes. Congrats, England prevailed against Slovakia. So I'm sure you're very happy about it. But thank you very much for handling the behind the scenes. D, V, and Gregory, thank you very, very much for being here together with me tonight. It was a pleasure to talk with you, especially happy that Gregory made it and he managed to join us.
So let me
thank you very much. Yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing all of your comments and theories, and just your general levels of hype, maybe for the season. It's less than 2 months now, and I would also like to mention that on Tuesday we will drop our episode three of episode 3 of House of the Dragon season 2 review that we have been doing. So we did episode 1 and 2 so far. And yeah, it's part of our branching out into some other fandoms that we are really passionate about. So yeah, you should, if you're interested in that, please check it out. Be on the lookout for it. Don't forget to like the video. We are not a huge channel, so it really helps us out with the algorithm. You can also please leave some comments as well. That's always very nice. And I have to say, we have been on 9,69,000 followers on YouTube for like quite a while now, which is going up and down. So if someone wants to subscribe, just we can get over to this 9.7, I will be very happy. But yeah, thank you everybody very, very much. And I'm sure we will have some really cool news again to talk about soon. So that is all from us. Have a good evening